Ben James, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Quadcast, and thanks for talking to us here at the beautiful Georgian Dragon in Chipstead.
On this lovely, wet but slightly sunny day.
Yeah, indeed. We're not quite sure what the weather's going to do, are we, with the rest of the week? This is, I suppose, the place you've called home from a work sense for, 16 years?
Yeah, 16 years since leaving IRC and being head of openings.
Yeah. And
setting up my own business. Getting back to the roots, I suppose, being a chef and cooking food that's from local suppliers. This was home for 16 years, and great fun it was too.
Yeah, and obviously 16 years, you were reading all the time in the press about places not surviving the first year. I think now is an interesting time, because if you look at when we did start, sort of 16 years ago, we were still in that financial crisis that happened in 2007. Yeah.
Sort of very much the back of it was 2009, but the consumer confidence wasn't there. To go out and get bank funding to do your own business was tricky at the time.
Yeah.
And that's why I decided to come to a pub. I was working for a restaurant company. These restaurants were, £2 million a pop to set up. Whereas going into a pub where you can take on a lease from a business that's got tables and chairs inside it, it's got a kitchen in the basic form, and you can make a business was more attractive as opposed to getting the loan. How to make it work back then, that was a tricky question. But I think that was where hospitality has always had challenges, but always had opportunity. People will always go out for good food. People will always go out if they're going to be served well, and people love to go to a cracking, good-looking venue. So back then in 2007, it was simple for us. Take a tired pub, put some life into it, give it some atmosphere, give it some good food, and give people a reason to come out and try it. And sure enough, it took time, but as the word spread, reputation grew, the place got busier and busier, and we got through those early challenges to, being able to go and open 2 more venues and experience the joy of busy restaurants. I think we have come full circle now, whether it's Brexit, whether it was the energy crisis, whether it's COVID. All of these are challenges that the industry faces, but you still have consumers there, consumers that still want to go out. Press are talking about there's no consumer confidence, but you can go to any pub on a Friday night and it can be full. You can go to a football stadium and it's full watching a game.
Yeah.
You can go to the airports and you can see people are going on holidays. People are careful about where they're spending their money, but give them good food, give them good service, give them a good-looking venue. People are happy to spend money.
And I have to say, I second that. Obviously, where our head office is, I suppose, a similar area to this.
Definitely.
Other side of the M25, but very similar in terms of the people that live there. And you can go to a place on a Friday night and you haven't got a cat and mouse chance of getting in. But that's an interesting point, isn't it? The good places seem to be doing well still.
I think, yes. I think the reputation is doing a lot. But also, what is good now? If you go back, maybe you didn't have to go back 16 years, but I remember doing a local school came as a sort of business studies project to look at the pub, and they were comparing a few different businesses in the area. And they asked me at the time, what was competition? And the competition was 2 other good pubs in the local area.
Right.
And I think at the time, we were Michelin recommended, we were in the good pub guides. So there wasn't a lot of pubs in sort of 10 square miles in those categories. Then they came back probably only 5 or 6 years later, like 2017. And they said to me then, where's competition? And things had changed slightly. People weren't spending their money quite the same. And now it was a case of, actually, the competition could be the fish and chip shop. The competition could be the bowling alley.
Yeah.
Where are people wanting to spend their money? If they've only got a little bit less, where are they spending it? So I think now good places are fast food. Good places are Michelin star. Good places are premium country dining.
Yeah.
Good places are your local coffee shop. For every pub that's closed in the last 20 years, I think 3 coffee shops have sprung up in their place. So good is what the consumer wants at that time. But I can guarantee, even if it's discounted, even if it's a chicken wing shop, it's probably the best chicken wings you've ever had. It's probably got a good smiling service. It's probably in a cracking looking venue.
Yeah.
So good will survive, definitely.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. So good will survive. So why now?
Why have I chosen to move?
Yeah.
I think I was fortunate, being head of openings back at IRC. I made a lot of friends in industry. When I came to set up my own places, there were people that were knocking on the door asking for help, whether that was for writing a menu or help with looking at their concept and where it's got a bit tired. And I was fortunate up until, well, right the way through 2020 to do quite a bit of consultancy on the side. And the good thing about consultancy back then, when I had a very young family, was I had a little bit of work-life balance. You know, I could work here on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but equally I could go out and earn some money doing consultancy, be home in the evening time. My children now are in that sort of still early, well, younger than teen stage. And the industry now, you can make money, undoubtedly. But the margins have got tighter. They've got harder. The operators need to work more. And I think that there's always been experts in the industry. There's always been operators that really know what they're doing. But there's always been passionate people that jump into this industry. Don't fall into it. They jump into it because they love food. They love service. But that passion isn't always coupled with knowledge. Right. And an experienced operator knows how to turn that key to really tighten that lock up, really, really get that business working well. And I can go to businesses that call me to come and have a look where they've got footfall coming through the door left, right and centre, but they've got almost as many staff working on that floor as they've got customers coming in the door.
Right. And
they're not paying those, the bottom lines just aren't getting covered at all. So all the while people are out there asking for some help, I thought, actually now's a good time to pull out of working full-time running businesses, go into hospitality, properly as a consultant, and see where that takes me. And I say, that's where now I find myself, is I'm talking to operators, some of them who have got absolutely fantastic products. I mean, I look at the ideas and I think, I wish I come up with some of those ideas. But that's all they've got. They've got these great businesses, but no one to run it. And I think you either need to get yourself somebody who knows what they're doing, or surround yourself with a good team of operators. I mean, Richard Branson was a classic example. Richard Branson has made millions over the years. Is he the best airline pilot? No. Is he the best football team? Is he the best? No. But he gets the best people around him and he drives those businesses forward. And that's similar to what I'm delivering now. And that's similar to what I'm saying to these good operators, is get good operators around you at a lower level to support you and drive your business forward.
Do you think that's a problem across the industry, though, that people... You know, first time I met you was I think was at the opening of Wimbledon Piccolino back in the day, which actually was, as it turned out, one of the few non-successes in the IRC story back then. But there was, if I think about the talent pool that you had in that business then, from James Jingle, from, you know, Alan Ritchie, Ian Donald, all top yourself, obviously, top operators. Do you think that's changed slightly in that time?
I think there's probably just more businesses for those individuals to work in. You know, hospitality now isn't just restaurants. I think the biggest thing that's happened in probably the last 7-8 years is office spaces, co-working office spaces. You saw the likes of WeWork that grew those. Yeah. And then in London, you've got Fora, which were a fantastic operator that started sort of probably 2017 onwards. But they've taken so many good operators from the pub and bar scene around London, put them as guest experience managers in their sites. They've got more of a Monday to Friday, 9-to-5 job. Yeah. But you've got guys that are brilliant at hospitality, people that would have been fantastic maitre d's if we still had restaurants in every corner, but they're now working in slightly different sectors where hospitality still is and can be. So I think there are still good operators out there. Have some people been scared from the industry or pushed from the industry with the likes of Brexit. You know, we lost a lot of good chefs. We lost a lot of good managers in Brexit because they went back to, you know, the Eastern Bloc or Poland, wherever they were from. But I still think there are good operators out there now. Definitely, 100%. There's some great operators out there. But are the margins being pushed, and is the focus being driven away from where managers need to be operating to make it work? Classic example. How do you make money? Do you make money by cutting costs, or do you make money by driving sales? I think it's much easier to make money by driving sales first, and then worry about cutting your costs. Because you haven't got the sales in the first place, doesn't matter what cost you cut, you're never going to make a profit.
So when you say that, for example, I think we touched on it when we were just having a chat before, that obviously consumer habits have changed. Not just, you mentioned about coffee, and we'll probably come on to coffee in a minute, but just in terms of the time that people go out now has changed, hasn't it? I was reading a thing the other day about and also we can tell obviously from our systems when the optimum time is that people now go out to eat, and it seems to be that certainly in the evenings that's come forward quite considerably. So,
all thanks to curfew, wasn't it?
I think
it was honest. I mean, we laugh about it, but the COVID curfew did something unbelievable in England, and certainly in the suburbs. You know, you had to go out and have dinner, and you had to be gone by 10 o'clock. I mean, literally, it was a case of running around at 4 minutes to 10, throwing bills on the table, kicking them out the restaurant. And then you just remember looking around at the Armageddon and glassware and plates everywhere. You know, you sort of, in the olden days, I worked for a gentleman called Ian Donald, and I think if he'd walked into a restaurant and seen 15 tables of empty glasses and plates everywhere, I mean, then get in here, Nate! You know, but that's
a very good impression, by the way.
So anyway, I hope I don't see him anytime soon with that one. Yeah. But yeah, you had that curfew which forced people to be out of the restaurants by 10 o'clock. But people started realising something. If I go out at 7 o'clock, if I leave at 9:30, I'm back home for 10. Don't have too much of a hangover in the morning. I get a good night's sleep. And certainly out here in the suburbs, we notice that people push from 8:30 to 7:30.
Yeah.
Now the problem with that is how on earth do you turn your tables?
Yeah.
Because, you know, traditionally in the model, certainly the model we work with your reservation system for many years, is that we gave everyone a 2-hour block on the system. So if the internet was booking tables left, right and centre, Johnny would be booked in 6 till 8, Bill would be booked in 8 till 10, and so forth and so on. With people booking at 7 and 7:30, you suddenly got this gap on the graph at 6 o'clock because you can't sell a 2-hour table at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
You can't sell a 2-hour table at 9:30 because the kitchen's closed. And I think that's where I'm not saying that's the reason you see these problems in the high streets with the likes of some of the chains. And you know, let's use Wagamama as an example. You know, I could insert any name here, but these sites have got a lot of young managers. Some of them who traditionally you would say were a really good waiter with a great front of house pizzazz, and now they've been made a supervisor or an assistant manager. They're there managing the book, managing the reservations. Gets to 6 o'clock on a Saturday night, they're fully booked at 7 and 7:30. You stroll along looking for a table, can't do one, we're fully booked tonight. Same thing would happen here back in the day at the pub. You know, we would be fully booked at 7, 7:30, can't sit you down for 2 hours. Yeah, I can't sit you down for 2 hours, but I could sit you down for an hour.
Yeah.
And I think what we focused on back when, well, before COVID, but certainly when COVID and the curfew trend kicked in, was saying to people with as big a smile as you possibly can, look, I can't give you the full 2-hour experience, but you've got plenty of time to sit down, have a main course, have a glass of wine, possibly get a pudding in, sit on the sofa afterwards, you know, try and get somebody in to spend some money, because much better to get 25, 30 quid out of them than nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's where, I think we're still getting those challenges now, but 7 days a week. You know, the classic question I get asked is, can you make us busier on a Monday, Tuesday? We're really happy with the weekend trade, but Monday, Tuesday's killing us. You know, people talk about us closing, but can we be busier on a Monday, Tuesday? if I had £1 for every time someone asked me that question, I would have a lovely Ferrari sitting somewhere for me to drive. If Ferrari ever wants to give me one to drive along, I'd happily take one for a day or two.
Sure, they've got an old F40.
Exactly, just something to drive around. But, Monday, Tuesdays, how do you make yourself busy on a Monday, Tuesday? Well, there's only two ways. Number one is become the best place in the area. Be reviewed in every newspaper and magazine. Be world-renowned, and you will be full every day of the week because people want to go to you. I mean, look at places like the Fat Duck.
Yeah.
You could never get in there 6 months in advance because it was so good, Monday through to Sunday. Or you discount your product massively.
Yeah.
You go onto the likes of Groupon and those kind of websites and you say, our normal £40 offering on a Monday is £10. You will be full, guaranteed. But quarter of the revenue, with all the staff you need to run the business, are you making any bottom line? Probably not.
And paying whoever got you the table to start with.
40% to Groupon to get you that anyway.
Yeah.
So it's you could argue and say it's a loss leader. You could say, well, you know what? These people are going to come on a Monday. They're going to go, wow, never came here before. That food was so good. We're going to go back on a Saturday and Sunday. Or are they going to go, that was so good, it was only a tenner. Let's go back next time it's a tenner. And there is a certain chain out there, which we don't need to mention, that got trapped a few years ago by nobody would go back unless they got the 50% discount.
Yeah.
Why would you pay full price when if you just wait one more day, you get an email to say you get 50% off? So I think it is difficult to go down that route of discounting on a Monday, Tuesday. There are ways to do it. But here's the kicker. If you want 50 more people on a Monday, how many people do you turn away on a Friday, Saturday or Sunday?
Probably 50 across the weekend.
Easily across the weekend.
Yeah.
And that's the funny thing, is that nobody ever looks at being full on a Friday, Saturday or Sunday and how many people they turn away. Because those people are begging to come in the door, yet we're happy to say no.
Yeah.
But how do we get them in on Monday? No. Find a way of getting them on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, even if it is just for 1 hour for a main course.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to put a conservatory out the back. Maybe you can put a pop-up somewhere. There's got to be a way of getting a few more people through that door that are clamouring to get in. Not saying don't worry about Monday, but don't worry about Monday. In fact, isn't that a band? Forget about Monday, don't worry about Monday?
I think it's don't like Mondays.
Is it don't like Mondays? Yeah, it's something along those lines. The kids would know.
Oh, mate, I'm going back to Boomtown Rats there.
Well, I was just thinking Eurovision this year. I'm sure it's don't like Mondays.
Oh, is it? Okay. That is so interesting, though, isn't it? Turn your tables, maximise when you're busy.
Yes, 100%. And you can train anybody to do that. I mean, we used the Res 5 system for years because the algorithms in it, or whatever you call it in technical terms, it can do that for you. I mean, sure, we needed to sit down and program it first, but it can manage the tables and move them around the restaurant so we can fit people in. And I remember Bar and Grill Manchester, back in the day when I was there. So we're talking almost 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
We had a very busy restaurant, 2 floors. Downstairs was sort of more of a bar area. Upstairs was a restaurant. But the reservation desk was downstairs. So running up and down those stairs was like doing a 100-metre sprint all the time. No wonder I look like this. I never managed to put on any weight. But we had young girls and boys, 16, 17 students, managing a book on a busy Saturday night. VIPs coming in, full restaurant, because the system you had confidence in a system that you could fit that person in. You could juggle people around. And I think that's where you can train somebody to do it. You can rely on a system to help you do it. But as long as you can train someone to put a massive smile on their face, to greet someone with hospitality, to greet them with confidence, they'll bend to whatever way you want. They want that table.
You were talking about experience earlier and so on. I remember up the road in Manchester Piccolino, the same GM there for years. And
Ettore. What a character. What a wonderful man.
Absolutely amazing chap. He used to come in on his moped from Sale. And he used to say to us about the way the system thought or should think. And I'm sure you'll agree with this. His point was, if you're booked in at 8, back then it would have been later, in Manchester, 8:30, 9 o'clock prime time. If I've got you booked in at 8:30, you would, I've got you. You're booked. Then if someone else walks in when you're about to arrive, what am I going to do? And the amount of times I was in there, would go in there with my father, and we'd have probably had a couple round the corner somewhere, and we would be marched to the bar, and Ettore would say, guys, just sit here, and I'm going to get you a nice glass of wine on the house and everything, because he'd already sold our table 15 minutes ago to someone and given them an hour. Yeah? So we're sat there, exactly what you're saying, because he said, right, you can have one course, sit down, and then I need the table for Mr. Truman type thing.
I mean, Ettore would have done it even better than the way you've remembered it, because he would have looked at 1 hour being available on that table and said, well, actually, Mr. Truman can wait at the bar. Yeah. As you say, give him a glass of Prosecco, give him a grissini stick, that can be on the house, because I can now give the table for an hour and a half and probably get another bottle of wine out of them, or et cetera, et cetera. You can guarantee he would have sold your bar stool to somebody else for a meal 2 minutes later. Yeah. So you would have gone to your table, and there was another couple sitting down who would have said, can't fit you on a table, you can have a table at the bar top. Here's some grissini, some nice chat from the bartender to look after you. He would have sold every available space in that restaurant. But that's a classic operator. That's a classic maitre d'. Yeah. You know, these guys have always been worth their salts. The ones that can look over a crowd walking in the door and see the VIP, can see 50 regular customers, but in their head, they know that person drinks Pinot Grigio. He has 4 bottles of champagne. Yeah. They'll have 3 courses. They're quick. And that experience you can't get from a new member of staff that walks in the door. Mm. But that with a CRM system, you can get. You know, so if you can type in a name to a system and you can see Bob Jones there. Oh, Bob Jones likes table 6. Bob Jones drinks Chianti, as it would have been back in the day. You know whether you can just offer him in 1 hour, or actually whether it's worth saying, tell you what, juggle him round, he's a good customer, we need to get him and give him a bigger table for longer. Really look after that person. And I think operators like Ettore are worth every penny you can pay them. But will AI take over? Because it's interesting what we're saying there about information. It's just storing information. And if a CRM system can do it, if AI can read things quicker, you know, could I put a camera on a door and scan everybody's walking in? Would the computer work out who they are and shuffle it around for me? I mean, it could be an incredible place to be in hospitality in 20 years' time if AI can do that. But at the moment, maximising, which is what we're coming back to here, maximising when people are queuing to get in rather than pushing them away has got to be people's focus.
The one thing, and I shouldn't really be saying this because we work for a technology company, but the one thing it will never replace, in my opinion, is that human ability to talk to the customer. You're never going to get that. That's impossible, in my opinion, with where it is. You're absolutely right. I can see we're already heading towards it with our systems, more AI. You know, the big thing for us at the moment is our reporting moving to AI. So, for example, you're in the car in the morning. Maybe you've got to drop the kids at school. You want to know how the place is doing in the morning, and you just say, "What were my sales yesterday?" And it tells you what they were in comparison to the previous Wednesday last week, what it was to that day the previous year. And, you know, we're even now building the weather in, because the weather's a huge factor, surely. What's the point in saying, oh, last Wednesday I did absolutely nothing, but yesterday, God, I was packed. Well, yeah, it was 23 degrees yesterday and the sun was blazing, and the week before it was pouring it down. So, you know, the two are not really comparable, are they?
No, and I think being able to store that information is critical if you like analysing your figures. Yeah. So, you know, I think most businesses do like-for-like sales, week-on-week sales, comparing it. And, you know, you sit here and look at your forecast for next week, and your forecast says you do $4,000 on a Thursday, and you're thinking, how on earth did we do $4,000 last year on a Thursday? Did we have a wedding? Did we have a private event? But, you know, if you could look back and say, well, actually, it was 28 degrees, it was a beautiful day, it was the warmest day for 6 months, and that's where we came and piled into the garden. All of a sudden you feel a bit more confident with, are you going to do those numbers today? So I think anything that the system can give you like that will help, certainly looking back and comparing for forecasts going forward.
I think the other thing we're looking at, which again comes back to what you're saying about the ability of someone with experience, is relationships between for example, items. So John R. MD always tells the story of the guy, the city trader, who every night, Monday to Friday, went into the bar in London after his day in the city, ordered a bottle of Petrus and a bowl of chips every night. They took the chips off the menu and he stopped going in there and drinking the Petrus. But that's something that maybe AI reporting can help with.
It can, but I think the operators is the important thing there. I mean, my business is called Alphabet Hospitality, not Alphabet Service. And it's not called Alphabet Hospitality because I look at everything in hospitality from a start-up through to, analysing your profit and loss, writing menus to training staff. It's not called hospitality because I do that. It's called hospitality because what makes a difference in this industry is hospitality over service. You walk into a bar, right, just picture the scene here. I was going to say it's a rainy, wet day, but looking outside now, it's blue sky and sunny, and I should be on a golf course. You walk into a pub on a Sunday, and we've all done this, I'm sure, as parents. You go into a pub on a Sunday, it's a wet day in the middle of the winter. You couldn't park anywhere near, so you drop your kids off and your mother-in-law and your wife at the front door. You drive 200 metres up the road and you park. You walk in the door, you're soaking wet. You're a little bit frustrated. Probably very frustrated, probably a little bit, should we say, probably don't want to be there.
Yeah, on edge.
Anyway, you stroll in the door and you say to them, stop, I think the family's already there. They point up to a table and you stroll up there, you've got a wet coat on, you try and put it down somewhere. Is that service? Yes. But flip it the other way. You walk in the door and someone says, you must be Mr. Jones. Your table's upstairs, but don't worry, they're fine. Let me take your coat for you, sit by the fire, warm up for a second, let me get you a pint of beer. How about a pint of best? We'll take you up in a few minutes. All of a sudden, you're being looked after.
Yeah.
It's hospitality. And that's what AI can't do.
No.
That's what a good operator does.
Yeah.
Calms you down, you're relaxed, and you might just have the best Sunday lunch ever.
To be honest, Ben, you just got me thinking about a nice Sunday lunch there. That would be, I'm thinking roast beef, I'm thinking...
Plenty of horseradish, you took it off the top of the Yorkshire pudding, yeah.
Maybe, after that pint of beer, maybe a nice glass of Chablis or something, that'd be absolutely lovely, wouldn't it? But anyway, sadly we're recording this on a Monday, so I've got another week to go. That's not great. So, obviously we've been talking to people about, and good operators like yourself, about what you see as the challenges for the industry moving forward. We've had all these things that have, 10 years ago no one could have foreseen. I mean, it's 9 years, isn't it, since the Brexit vote. We've had COVID. We've now got a budget coming up in November where I think a lot of people are very, very nervous. What's your take on it?
I mean, wow, there's a lot of challenges now. I think wages is definitely going to unite the industry. I think what we are spending on staff just to open the doors, anywhere from a busy place on Leicester Square right the way through to a small cafe on the coast where they get seasonal trade. Mm-hmm. I think the challenges with that is the work-life balance as well. You've got small operators running seaside venues that have got to have staff working 7 days a week effectively through the busy period, and then what on earth do you do with them in the winter when it's cold and wet? Yeah. And trying to keep them happy, keep them on side, keep them feel like they've got a work-life balance. I think the only way to do that is to be involved. You've got to talk to those staff. You've got to make them feel like they're being listened to. Even if you can't solve the problem, the very fact that you show you care and you listen will keep the staff with you, and they'll keep working with you in that strong teamwork ethic. But I think wages is definitely going to be something that we need to look at. We took away service charge many years ago, and at the time I think it was right. There were a lot of operators who were probably not using service charge in an ethical way, in a way that was right for the rest of the staff. But now we have got an industry where guys are earning really good money with service charge as well. Yeah. I mean, you look at the average 16-year-old who works in a restaurant running plates around on a busy Friday or Saturday night. They must be earning, on average, £60 for 4 hours. Now, if I can go back to being 16 and you can give me £60 for working 4 hours, I'd have been a very happy young man. or lady, if I could put on a skirt on and run around as well.
Yeah.
So I think we are going to have to talk to the government about how does it work. We are also going to have to look at what is the average business doing. Is it 14 services a week? Is it 21 services a week? Are you doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Is it just lunch and dinner? Are you cutting yourself down to a 5-day week model? So you just work for 5 days and then you all have 2 days off together?
Yeah.
There's lots of important questions, and I think it requires people to take a step back and to really look at their businesses properly. Look at the numbers, evaluate it, measure things, put things in place so you can really see whether you're talking fact or you're talking fiction. And that way, they've got a good chance still of making that business survive.
I suppose that's part of the thing you've touched on there, is that everybody's aware of the macro issues, the rise in NI and this type of thing. But actually, how that impacts you depends on several factors, doesn't it? Number of staff, perhaps even where you are in the country in terms of your wages to your profits and so on. A cafe in Blackpool is not going to be the same as a gastropub in Kent. That's probably just a fact.
Yeah.
Everywhere's going to be different. So.
And I think, whether you're 1 floor, 2 floors, whether you're a full service restaurant, whether you're a takeaway, all of these things, they are going to influence it massively. And they are going to make it different between the two. But this is a good industry. People, I think we said right at the start, people will go out for good food, good service, in a good-looking venue.
Yeah.
And I think if your product's right, and you are true to yourself, can you look yourself in the mirror and say, we do what we say we're going to do? What's written on the tin? Who said that? Ron Seal, I think? Can you do what you said that's on the tin? I think you will survive and you'll make it work. Definitely.
That's interesting. And I think that gives a lot of people hope to hear an experienced operator like yourself say that. But people, as you say, people just have to think long and hard about it, aren't they? What model works where and so on. That's very interesting what you said about do you move to a 5-day a week? I mean, one of our place just down the road from the office, probably the most successful local pub in our area, they shut on the dot on Sunday at 4 o'clock and don't open until Tuesday at 12, and they're still doing the old hours. It's 12 till 2:30 every day, and then they're open again till 5:30, and most of the time these days shut at 9:30. But it's incredibly busy for those periods. So as you say, why they don't even open on a Monday, let alone try and get people
No,
in.
I mean, one of the moves we did here many years ago was we stopped serving on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
And we used to serve lunch up until 4. We had a sort of little break to regroup, and then we served food 5 till 8.
Yeah.
And actually just serving through till 6 o'clock straight through. We thought we'd lose quite a bit of trade in the evening time, but actually people just came in a bit earlier. You filled up that gap at 4 o'clock. All the staff now get home earlier, and we do as much covers, as much sales, is slightly dependent on what people want to spend that day, but you do as many people in that time as you would have done on a longer day.
Yeah, and that's it. That in itself is interesting. Pack it when it's busy.
When people want to go out, make sure you can sit them down.
Yeah.
We sat there and said, why we're turning people away at 4 o'clock so we can regroup and stuff? Well, actually, we're regrouping because we're doing another 3 hours. If we just do another 2 hours, we can get through it.
Yeah, and everyone's talking about 8 o'clock.
It's just taking that step back. Again, Ian Donald used to say, you're too close to the coalface, you can't see what you're doing. Step back from that coalface, get a look at it, and then attack it hard.
Great advice. Great advice. I think probably in any business that's great advice. So we've finished with 3 questions for you, Ben, if that's all right.
Okay, let's go.
2 are hospitality related, 1 isn't. So if you had to eat anywhere again that you've eaten in your time, where would it be and why?
Okay, so I mean, there's been some great places, but a long time ago, I did go to Royal Hospital Road when Gordon Ramsay was there, and I was blown away, not because of the food, but because I was treated like an individual. We went in there, 4 chefs, we weren't dressed to the nines, we didn't talk like Chelsea boys, and we walked in there, and whether the staff clocked us straight away, realised it, but they brought it slightly down to our level. They really, really understood us. They helped us understand the menu and everything it was about. And they made us feel so comfortable and relaxed that food was the best food I've ever had, because I felt like I was eating with friends, the waiters being the friends.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was worth every penny. So that would be the one place I'd go back to.
And that comes back to the role of the maitre d' we were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
That AI won't replace.
It won't replace that at all.
Which brings us on to, because we obviously are Quadronets, is a Quadcast. If there was one bit of technology that you think will move the industry forward, what would it be? Could be anything.
Oh, one bit of technology that move the industry forward. I think there's got to be a way of rotoring staff and moving the rotors round, because every business in the UK surely has 15 WhatsApp chats.
Yeah.
Every business in the UK puts a rotor out on a Friday, Thursday, and despite how many times they've said no rotor changes, there's probably 15,000 requests over the next week to change things around. If that could be automated in a way where you still end up with an Ian Donald classic word of aces in places, it would work great. Because the problem now is, you cannot swap John for Giles. They are not the same quality.
Yeah.
So it does require a manager to look at it. But if you could put rotors together, waiters could swap shifts and everything could move round with aces in places being considered, and it wouldn't bugger up the business, for lack of a better word, I think that would save managers so much heartache.
That's a very interesting answer. Very interesting answer. And last question, because you're hopefully going to have some time to play some golf. Where's the one golf course you haven't played yet that you really want to play?
Royal St George's.
Yeah?
I'd love to give that a crack.
Okay.
I'd love to give that a crack.
Well, all the best, because my friend played there. He's an 11 handicapper, and he said they played off the back tees and he couldn't reach the fairway even when he had a good drive. So I'm sure maybe if we get down the driving range before.
Yeah, let's put that for 5 years' time then, I think, definitely.
Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure seeing you again, and well, I'm sure our paths are going to cross many more times in the future. Thanks very much.
Great fun. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.